Will the old antitrust laws that broke up the Rockefeller monopoly in 1911 be used against Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in this video and what it is being called for by a Facebook co-founder. Now, before we get into that, plus a lot more, you should know we're definitely not big fans of Facebook since they just took away our audience that we've been building for years. Hundreds of thousands of individuals just gone in a blink of a second. No explanation. We just can't post on our page. So a huge reach of our independent media organization has been taken away. So we need your help. And if you guys are, looking for clothes, if you guys get cold sometimes, if you guys need a sweater or a pillow or a shirt or a sticker, check out teesprings.com. We're going to have the link in the description below where you could buy something and actually support real independent media and support this independent media broadcast so we could continue our work. Now, let's just jump into this story about the beloved social media network that is just filled with controversy. This one, a very interesting one, because we literally have the Facebook co-founder coming out saying, quote, Zuckerberg power is unprecedented and, quote, un-American, saying also that the social media network boss is too powerful and the government should break up the, quote, dangerous tech giant. Now, there's a lot to unfold here, Jason. You think that there might be some shenanigans when it comes to stocks and shares here. What's your take on it before we get into the bigger kind of quotes and comments here by this Facebook co-founder, Jason?
Well, Luke, I've been talking about for a while how there is a large sector of investors and shareholders that want him out. They've tried to get him out before. It's been very, very close, razor thin, if you will. But Zuckerberg has really been able to promote himself as the entire face of this platform since day one, despite lawsuits from, say, the Winklevoss twins and others. And now you have somebody who is a co-founder out there, Chris Hughes. He's also an investor in other tech. He's an entrepreneur coming out and saying, listen, we need this broken up. And this comes on the heels of Zuckerberg actually giving a big speech and talking about the privacy concerns and really doing a 180-degree turn on when he was first asked about, quote-unquote, election meddling. Long before there were hearings or hysteria about Poot rigging the election for Trump, basically Zuckerberg was correct. He said, I think it's an insult to people's intelligence that some ads would cause election interference. Let me read his quote from this now. I'm disappointed in myself and the early Facebook team for not thinking more about how the newsfeed algorithm, which was not as rigged then and really did represent what people wanted to see, could change our culture, influence elections, and empower nationalist leaders. Come on. Yep. The idea that Facebook is the reason that culture has changed or that nationalist leaders were empowered. Show me the nationalist leaders that were empowered. And by the way, nationalism isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as it's not race-based. And I'm glad he didn't say white nationalist leader, but let's be honest, that's what he was implying, Luke.
Well, Facebook many times created a lot of controversy and they lied about it. Just point blank. Yes, now we care about your safety and security and your privacy. Bull crap. And again, we've been documenting on this channel for a very, very long time just the amount of incredulous lies that came out from Facebook. And again, they're banning people left and right here. But outside of the market talk, the economic, the stocks, I do believe that this guy brings up an important point because he says that the most dire threat with Facebook and Zuckerberg is, quote, the unilateral control over speech. There's no precedent for his ability to monitor, organize, and even censor the conversations of 2 billion people, he continued. Mark's influence is staggering, far beyond that of anyone else in the private sector or in government. Well, I would argue with Google and Amazon out there that there deserves to be a larger discussion around that. But again, Facebook has a lot of sway. Facebook has a lot of power. They've been caught manipulating the algorithm so it works into their personal benefit and also the benefit of the interests that they serve. And of course, he has unlimited control over the algorithms. He determines what people see. Facebook did psychological studies before, seeing what kind of psychological effects they could have on human beings just by manipulating the algorithm. And of course, it's huge power since they make the social media network as addictive as possible, literally taken gambling techniques used in the sports gambling casino world and applying it to social media to make it addictive and having, of course, very detrimental effects to society, which many important people link. So I do believe outside of that conversation, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to the power of Facebook, the power of corporations like Amazon and Google. And we have to understand, it doesn't just stop here with Mark Zuckerberg. There's a bigger discussion that needs to be had, not just around privacy, but also specifically determining what people see and don't see, since Facebook has been censoring so many different voices out there, not just right-wing voices, but our voices and other anti-establishment voices out there for absolutely just hand-selected, picked reasons that absolutely make no sense in the minds of many, Jason.
Yeah, and when you were talking about just a moment ago, the endorphin rush, right? The scientific studies to get people to stay there, right? Well, Sean Parker, who was an executive there, openly discussed that. Sean Parker, Bilderberg attendee, disruptor, and again, somebody that's been in Silicon Valley for a long time. You look at this guy, Chris Hughes, and he also points out, hey, this isn't just Facebook we're talking about. They've acquired WhatsApp. They've acquired Instagram. And remember, when Facebook announced those bans last week, within hours, they also banned them from the Instagram platform. Yeah. And Luke, they probably would have banned them from the WhatsApp platform as well, except for that's a little tougher to track, trace, and database, sir.
Yeah, they're also working on virtual reality on a huge, impressive scale. They're also working on artificial intelligence, which Mark Zuckerberg, according to many people, is not taking very seriously with the vast amount of power that artificial intelligence grants people. And we're talking about godlike power. There's a reason why world leaders have compared the development to artificial intelligence to nuclear weapons as the next global weapon out there that's going to have devastating effects. Now, this guy, Chris, goes on. He says, quote, he sets the rules for how to distinguish violent and incendiary speech from the merely offensive, and he can choose to shut down a competitor by acquiring, blocking, or copying it. We talked about how he was doing that before. Now, this guy, of course, came out in an op-ed in the New York Times, but he's also going to be doing a television interview on NBC Nightly News on Thursday this week, which, of course, is going to have a lot of attention. But he is specifically calling for monopoly busting. He's talking about the Sherman Antitrust Act and other laws that were used in 1911 against Standard Oil, against the Rockefellers and their monopolies. But again, the bigger question has to be understood here is that Facebook, this is a kind of nuanced point that not a lot of people talk about. Facebook, by and large, is as powerful as they are because of the government, and they work in favor of their government, and they're too favorable to the government for the government to do something about. We look at the seed funding, tax incentives, the tax breaks, the collusion that happens with intelligence agencies and with local law enforcement, and the shutting down of free speech online. This works towards the ultimate goal of government, which is control. So will these anti-Sherman Trust Act laws work? I don't think the government's going to act on them, but at least there's a public discussion around it that should be motivated around the moral, around the legal, around the right and wrongs on this conversation, and not just simply about the stocks, Jason.
Well, I want to also point out that these laws haven't really been used to break up a telecommunication company since the 80s and Ma Bell. Okay, that's the last time we're talking about now, 30 plus years ago, to be talked about and then instituted to use these powers to break up a telecommunication company.
Yeah,
now, you'll
AT&T
say...
in 1982.
Yes. So, and again, that's when they decided to do it. This article's from 1984. A lot was going on. It took a while to bust this up. Let me say this. When you talk about Facebook, you may not say they're a telecommunication company. Now, are they a platform? Are they a publisher? One thing is certain. It is used for people to communicate directly with one another and to a massive audience. So in that respect, it's a little bit different because anybody can make their own website, and where with MobBell you couldn't just buy your own telephone lines. But the question is, will this be modernized now for 2019? I'm not so sure it will. I think that the powers that be, as long as that they can keep Zuckerberg under their globalist authoritarian censorship-like thumb, Luke, I think that this may go into passing. But what I do believe this is putting more and more pressure on Zuckerberg to just kind of go along with the program and never go rogue.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason Zuckerberg was in Congress asking for government intervention, government regulations, which of course we covered. To me, the Facebook is one small aspect of it. I'm happy there's a conversation. It should be centered around what we talked about in this specific video. If you agree, let us know in the comment section. If you disagree, if you think the conversation should be bigger, let us also know in the comment section below. We're not perfect, but we are engaging in a conversation which is important to move forward in order to get, in the right direction, to move forward in the right direction. Jason, we'll see what happens. Of course, we're going to be following this very closely. Anything else you want to say, and do you want to close it off here?
Folks, we're doing 4 videos a day across 2 different platforms. Make sure that you are subscribed to both We Are Change and News for a Change. Ring that bell for notifications. Share this stuff on social media. And most importantly, get out there and be the change you want to see in the world.